The other day, I was scrolling down on YouTube trying to find video ideas, until one video actually caught my eye. We made a working chess.com in Minecraft. This got me thinking, what if instead I just make it unbuildable? And when I say making chess.com, I don't mean just making a chessboard with all the pieces and you have to move it manually. I'm talking about the board, the pieces, and even an actual playable chess game, all built using the incredibly questionable engineering tools that this game gives me. So today, we're going to see if I can turn a board game into Alright, first step, I'm gonna try and make the move algorithm, which is the main thing in chess. So, when you click a piece, it's going to copy the piece's code into our clipboard. Then, when you click on another square, it's going to clear the previous square and paste the piece from our clipboard. And the clipboard must be cleared after that. Alright, let's make that in build mode. Okay, this is surprisingly not taking that long to make. So, I made this thing right here. This one is for telling the piece's code in binary. Beside it is for telling whether the pieces is black or white. And this one right here is to tell the program when it is time to copy and paste. This one is basically our clipboard to store our data temporarily. If you click a piece, it's going to copy the piece into the clipboard. And if you click on another square, it's going to delete the previous square and paste our piece into the new square. Alright, that was easy. For step 2, I'm gonna make the chess pieces model. Luckily, there are only 6 different pieces in chess, with an additional of another 6 for the black one. Surely this is not gonna take a long time to... Anyway, so I gave each of this piece their own binary code. And I also added this decoder right here so that it can convert the binary number into a real number. Alright, it's time to duplicate this decoder into every square. And wiring each of them one by one. And move all of these pieces into our new board. Then just doing all of this thing right here. In case anyone wonders why there's another display that came out of nowhere, well, hear me out guys. At first, I planned to make this chess having 2 displays. This makes playing chess with 2 players be better. All I gotta do is just flip all the server's wires so that it would display a flipboard for player 2. But you guys didn't see why I straight up removing that. Okay, back to the video. I just realized that I just skipped one of the most important thing on chess.com, and that is the highlight. If you move a piece, it's going to show a highlight on the square you move from and into. Move another piece, and it's going to clear the previous 2 highlighted square. So, how are we going to make this unbuildable? First thing first, we're going to need something to count the highlight. In this case, we're going to need a 2-bit counter, which counts from 1 to 4 or 0 to 3. But let's just use 0 to 3 for now on. Okay, if you click a square, it's going to check the counter if it's not 3. If it is true, it's going to add the highlight and add 1 to the counter. Click on another square, it's going to check the counter, add highlight, and add 1 to the counter. And same thing for the third one. Alright, in this case, the not 3 is false, which means that it cannot just add highlight to the square. Instead, it will clear all the highlight before finally adding the highlight. After that, it will add the previous highlight to the previous square and add 3 to the counter. This process will always work just like the real one. Alright, it's time to do the job in buildable. Welcome back in the game. So I just made this not 3 status, just like I did on my previous animation. And these logic gates shows if the square is highlighted or not. This is the one that clears the highlight, and beside it is of course was adding 3 to the counter. Okay, here is a quick showcase of the highlight I made. You click a square, and the highlight will be added as long as the counter not showing 3. Once you reach 3 highlight, it's going to clear the whole board and add the previous highlight to the previous square. Alright, let's get back to the duping part. Now, you might be wondering why I dupe this chessboard so early. Well, the reason I dupe this chessboard so early so that I can perform two of the greatest moves in the game. For pawn promotion, should be pretty simple to make. If a pawn goes here, then it's promotion for white, which then shows the board that contains queen, rook, bishop, and horse, which the player can pick any of it. And if the pawn goes here, then it's a promotion for black. Just like the previous one, it's going to show the same board but for a black piece. Okay, we're gonna do an instant promotion here. So pawn goes there, and the board should, there you go. Let's just pick the horse and bet, it works. There are quite a few rules for you to do an en passant. The first is that your pawn must be on the 5th rank. Then, your opponent must move 2 squares forward and must land directly next to your pawn. And lastly, you must capture that pawn on the very next move. Considering that we only play legal move here, we can actually remove these 2 rules and replace it with, if your pawn goes to the 6th rank, then clear the square behind it. Okay, there's a problem with this though. With the case if we just wanted to capture the pawn on the 6th rank, so we'll just straight up capturing both pawns. So let's just modify this rule by adding, if your pawn goes to the 6th rank and that square is empty, then clear the square behind it. And this should always work as it should be. Alright, you guys won't believe how simple the mechanism actually is. Well, here it is, the whole en passant mechanism. The top one here checks if a pawn is currently being selected. This will make only a pawn can do en passant, and not other pieces. The white and black logic gate is used to detect where the pawn landed on the 6th rank, followed by the ping logic gate used to clear the square behind it. And just like that, an en passant works. For allowing players to castle, there are 4 different rules. The first one, the king and the rook must have not moved the entire game, and all the spaces between the king and the rook must be completely empty. And also, the king cannot be currently in check, or the king cannot cross over any square that is under attack by an enemy piece. Since my chess cannot detect checks, we can remove these 2 rules, and considering that we only play legal move again, we can remove this rule also. This way, we're left with only 1 rule. But how are we going to implement this rule in game? You see, we need something to detect if there is a king or rook on that specific square. We also need a castling status, which must be true from the start. And all we have to do is just connect these status into our castling status with a NAND gate. In case one of them move, then the NAND gate will be true, changing the status of the castling to be false for the whole game. Here is the last mechanism of the day. This is the NAND gate that I was talking about. In front of it is our castling status. The left one is true and the right one was false. Beside that is a logic gate to move the rook if the player wants to castle the king. And just like that, our 3 special move is finally done. All I had to do now was just duplicate the 4x8 display so that it will become a full 8x8 display. But remember at the beginning of the video, I told you guys about removing the other display. Well, you guys are gonna find out right now. After the server crashing for nearly 20 times, Trying to figure out a way for the whole week to bypass this, I had no other choice but to actually move the other display. Wiring the remaining 4x8 display, and finally generating all the pieces together. And trying all of this thing up, just making sure nothing is broken. And finally, moving all the display here. Clip of our friend and I playing the chess in Vilnius. This was probably the worst ever chess match possible to ever exist in the entire history of the universe. The game ends with me checkmating him without realizing that I was just straight up sacrificing my very own king.